Hello, everyone. I never imagined I'd find myself in this situation, but I'm at a loss for what else to do. I love my wife deeply, but I'm terrified she's been unfaithful. It's too embarrassing to talk about with friends or family. I suspect my coworker might have slept with my wife, and it's looking more likely to be true. I'm a 36-year-old man, and I met my wife, Kate, who's 32, at a mall in our city back in 2014. I first saw Kate in the food court. It's funny, because I was actually headed to a different restaurant, but the line was too long. So, I got in line at the restaurant where she was standing. When she looked at me, I was struck by how beautiful she was. She laughed and told me she wasn't in line for food. Her cousin worked there and she was waiting for her. I was thrilled she spoke to me because I couldn't figure out what to say. Thanks to that, I was able to break the ice with some humor, and we chatted while she waited for her cousin. I could tell I was making a good impression. I offered to buy her some food, but she said she wanted a strawberry lemonade. After buying it, we talked about our families and kids. It wasn't easy being parents, and we gave up a lot of our nightlife. No more clubs or concerts, but we still found time for fun. Our nightlife was definitely cut in half. Despite that, I was grateful to have Kate as my wife and felt incredibly lucky. She had a great personality and was stunning, to the point that even my friends gave me props. Kate is Cuban and looks like a mix between the actress who played Wonder Woman and Salma Hayek. She's curvy, has tattoos on her arms, and usually wears a ponytail. Now let's talk about Steave. I'm not really friends with him, just an acquaintance. We chat during lunch and occasionally hung out, like that one time we shot dice in the parking lot. We mostly talked about basketball games. One weekend my car had brake issues, so Kate drove me to work and picked me up. The first time, she arrived early and had to wait about 30 minutes. She ended up talking to Steave and his friend Olivia while waiting. Kate mentioned she enjoyed chatting with Olivia and would hang out in the office with her and Steave. Since Olivia and Steave lived close to each other and were good friends, it didn't bother me to see him around them. Kate started visiting my job more often to talk with Steave and Olivia. Since Olivia was Kate's friend, I didn't mind her visiting sometimes or talking on the phone, but Steve's presence made me uneasy. One day, Steave was on the phone and mentioned my name, saying someone wanted to talk to me. It turned out to be an old coworker, Charley. We caught up and he asked me if Kate still came to my job and if she still talked to Steave. I said yes, and he made me nervous with his questions. Charley told me he had seen Kate and Steave getting too close, even flirting. He said Kate visited Steave on Saturdays when his department had to work overtime, which shocked me because I rarely worked overtime. Charley then told me something that froze me. He said he saw Steave grab Kate by her neck while she twerked for him. Kate wasn't exactly built for twerking, but she had enough to do it if she wanted. Charley assured me he wasn't blind and that everyone saw her bounce for Steave. He even lifted her shirt to show her butt and leggings. When I asked if she tried to stop Steave, Charley said no, she seemed to enjoy it. This news hit me like a ton of bricks. I had to confront Kate and see if she'd be honest. When I got home, she was on the phone with her mom. After some small talk, I asked if she had met Olivia that day, and she said yes. I then asked if she had seen Steave, and she said no. I was surprised because they seemed inseparable, like the Three Musketeers. She told me Steave wasn't around that much. I felt a mix of rage and tears welling up. I need proof of her infidelity, but it's tough since it involves my coworkers. I don't want to jeopardize my job, and I can't use what Charley told me because twerking isn't enough for a divorce. Besides, they just deny it and claim Kate was bringing Steave lunch or something, and the old lady security guard would let her in. I have to face the possibility that my wife is cheating on me with Steave, my coworker. I can't confide in family or friends because of the shame, and it's getting worse with all the suspicious things I've noticed. It's definitely possible that my coworker has slept with my wife. To bring everyone up to speed, my car needed new brakes, so Kate had to pick me up from work. While waiting, she met and became friends with Olivia, who works there. Charley told me he noticed them flirting, which usually happened an hour before Steve's lunch. What was worse is when he said that Kate would visit on Saturdays when Steave worked overtime. Initially, Charley wasn't going to say anything, but one Saturday, he saw something that made him speak up. After Charley left, he said he heard Spanish music playing from the shipping dock. When he looked in, he saw my wife dancing and twerking for Steave. He said it was shocking because it happened 8 or 9 months ago. So much time had passed, and who knows what she was doing with Steave now. I appreciate Charley for telling me, but I wish he had done it sooner. It seems Steave has been with my wife for a while. Around the house, I couldn't get into Kate's iPhone because she had a hard passcode, and she was always on it, gossiping with her mom and sister. I would eavesdrop on her late-night conversations, which bothered me. She would go on the back porch to talk, and I'd listen from the side door. I could tell she was probably talking to Steave. I'd hear her say things like, "Stop, you're crazy," or mention having fun at a club in the suburbs. When I wanted to be intimate, she found it amusing and said she didn't want to with the kids in the house. When I asked when that had ever stopped us before, Kate would tell me to leave her alone and that I was crazy. All these signs before and after Charley's call made it clear that my wife had been unfaithful. Why did I ever think this was normal? Last Saturday, I think I made her miss a chance to be with Steave, and she was pissed. After I got off work, she was annoyed when I said I needed to run errands. She hung up on me and had an attitude later that night. When I spoke to her, she blew up, saying I ruined her night. I told her running errands was more important than her hanging out. Kate said I never mentioned errands, and I pointed out she didn't say anything about going out. When I asked who she was seeing, she told me to forget it. After her shower, she got ready to go out again, saying she was meeting friends. I told her she couldn't just leave, and she accused me of trying to control her before storming out with an attitude. I was furious because I knew this was about missing time with Steave. Kate didn't return until 2:30 in the morning. I had been texting her, and she finally replied that I was trying to control her. Our son woke up from all the yelling and asked what was wrong. Kate said she wasn't arguing anymore and went to the bedroom. I let our son play a video game for a bit before sending him back to bed. I wanted to continue arguing with Kate. When I walked into the bedroom, I found her in barely anything, which stopped me in my tracks. She shot me a look that said, "We'd just argue if I said anything." She grabbed her pajamas and changed in the bathroom. Seeing her like that was a shock. Her behavior had been super suspicious and secretive. After reading advice online, I decided to record her to catch any incriminating conversations. I ordered a voice-activated recorder and asked a friend if I could use his address for the delivery. He agreed without any questions. I'll pick up the recorder from my friend's place when it arrives. The support from this forum has been invaluable during this terrible time. It's helped me be stronger and smarter about uncovering the truth. I appreciate all the advice, even though it's been divided on how to handle the situation. Some folks suggested I gather evidence to confront her, while others advised me to blow up the situation based on the red flags. My wife forced my hand recently. Charley, an old friend who used to work with us, called to say Steave and Kate had been meeting up secretly and acting very inappropriately. He mentioned seeing her visit Steave on Saturdays when they worked overtime. One day, Charley saw her twerking for Steave, and when Steave lifted her shirt to see her butt and grabbed her by the neck, it was clear something was happening. Charley said everyone saw them together during lunch. After this revelation, I started snooping on Kate. I knew she and Olivia were friends, but Steave was always around too. I noticed so many red flags. She'd hang out all night claiming to be with friends, take calls on the back porch, and spontaneously leave the house without saying where she was going. Eavesdropping on her phone calls was the worst. Kate would giggle and flirt, and it sounded like she was talking to Steave. I realized I'd been blind to what was happening while I focused on working and raising our kids. Charley made me see I had rose-tinted glasses on. Kate used her friendship with Olivia as a cover to see Steave. Over the past 8 months, she became very secretive, only talking to her friends and speaking to me when necessary. She got dressed up more often and came home late, undressing after hanging out until 2 a.m. The signs were there even before Charley said anything. I always tried not to be the jealous type. Kate is very pretty and gets lots of attention on Instagram, with thousands of guys commenting on her photos, even old ones. It's tough for a jealous person to be with someone who has that much attention online. I tried to be understanding, but this was different. I told Kate she could go out with friends, but needed to balance her responsibilities as a parent. She accused me of being controlling, saying she had the right to go out and not be stuck at home or working all the time. She agreed to be more mindful of me and the kids, which was nice, but it didn't last. A few hours later, my nephew called, asking if he could come over to play a video game. I told him he could if Kate would bring him back home. He said he'd ask her when she picked him up after the movie, which confused me. I thought she was watching the movie with him. When I confronted her, she brushed me off, which pissed me off even more. I called my job, asking the security guard if Steave was still there. She said yes, and I hung up, wondering if Kate was with him. I got in my car and drove to my job, seething with rage. As I walked in, I didn't see Steave or Kate, so I headed to the trucker's lounge. One of the crew tried to stop me, but I told him to get out of my way or I'd mess him up. He backed off, knowing I was serious. I heard Steave groaning as I approached the lounge. Staying close to the wall, I peeked in and saw Steave banging my wife. It was bad enough seeing Steave with his shirt open and pants down, but he was holding Kate's face in his crotch. She was on her knees, obediently pleasing him. When they noticed me, she asked me to leave, still holding him. I cursed them both, and she just covered her face, saying, "Oh my God." She wasn't embarrassed about being caught, just about how I was acting in front of Steave. I called her every name in the book, but she just rolled her eyes and begged me to leave them alone. She really just wanted me to leave. I got into my car and drove home. Once I got there, I was absolutely furious. I punched the walls and cursed at the top of my lungs. I couldn't believe she would do this to me. She had become someone I didn't even recognize. I was done with her BS. As it stands, she still hasn't come back, and I don't even know where she is. I bet she's with her sister, having to explain the situation. Whatever comes next, I have the evidence she cheated. It's all just a bunch of bull, because women like her always revert to their true selves. I bought a voice-activated recorder, but I only used it once. All I needed was the truth from a guy who doesn't work with us anymore. Final update. Hello everyone, I want to thank you all for your positive messages and support. You've helped me understand what my wife was doing and the best ways to handle it. Many of you asked for an update on how I was doing, and right now it's the worst. I feel betrayed and so angry. Kate came to my job to pick me up for a week because my car needed repairs. She made friends with Olivia, who works in the office, and Steave, who works on the shipping dock. At first, I didn't mind them hanging out during breaks, but then they started hanging out outside of work. Initially, I thought Kate was only hanging out with Olivia, but I was wrong. An old coworker, Charley, called and told me Kate was spending more time with Steave than with Olivia. Charley described Kate's behavior perfectly. After this, I did some snooping and saw all the red flags, her always being on her phone, hanging out without me, and not acknowledging me as her husband. Everything Charley said was looking very true. People here told me to wait for her to slip up, and they were right. It's like Charley gave me a clear path, and all I had to do was wait. This happened when Kate said she was going to watch a Pixar movie, but instead was twerking for Steave and spending the end of the shift with him. I drove all the way to the job and saw her car there, so I knew she was with Steave. When I made my way to the small trucker's lounge, I peeked in and saw Kate on all fours with Steave in her mouth. Seeing Steave holding my wife's head in his crotch made me grab my phone to record. She saw me and told me to leave. I almost fainted when she said that. After going off in a rage, I managed to calm down and realized our marriage was over. She said she didn't love me like that anymore. If she didn't love me, then what did she love me as, if at all? I had to accept the truth. Kate was the type who needed to be allowed to act entitled and crave attention. Her Instagram was filled with thousands of guys, and the comments were worse. It was tough having thick skin, especially with her bikini pictures from our trips to Vegas and Jamaica. It was clear she wouldn't change, even though she found someone who took care of her. Now that it was over, I had to face the music. I called my sister Bailey, who said she would check on me later, and hung up. She called back, saying John was coming to pick me up, and I should go with him. She asked about the kids, and I said they were at the movies and Kate was supposed to pick them up. She wasn't happy about the kids being with her, but in my state of mind, there was nothing we could do. After hanging up, I started to drift off to sleep until I heard John pulling up. Opening the door, I saw John walking up with a bag and some advice. He said I should leave and let Kate come later to take everything. After an hour of talking and changing the locks, we left for John's house. John and his girlfriend treated me well and did their best to cheer me up all weekend. Bailey came over to talk to me too. After contacting everyone else in my family, I couldn't help but relive what I saw. I was hoping to catch Kate confessing, but the opportunity came sooner than I expected. After she said she didn't love me, I asked her why. When I told her the truth, that I caught her cheating at my job, there was a few seconds of silence. Then she started denying it, saying I was lying. After letting her rant, I told her to hang up and that I would show her the proof. She started saying something, but I angrily hung up and sent her the video. I didn't hear from her the rest of the day. I spent the rest of the day trying to relax. When Monday came, I talked to someone about the situation. They called the manager and told me to send the video to his email, and he would take care of it when the boss visited the facility. In a couple of days, I told him fine, but I wasn't going to come to work for those days. He said he was just about to suggest that. A couple of days ago, Kate's sister, Abigail, finally called me back, which surprised me. She said she talked to Kate and wanted me to speak with her that night. Abigail started by saying that nothing much happened, just that Kate messed around with Steave at work or his place. Laughing this off, I asked, "How do I know that's true? For all I know, she banged Steve's crew too when she was there." Abigail got mad and said that's not what happened. I asked her to tell me everything Kate had told her. I regretted blurting out my suspicions because I knew Kate wouldn't lie to Abigail, which made it all worse. Abigail said that Kate found Steave attractive and told Olivia, who then told him. After that, Steave would get too close to Kate and talk about her inappropriately. Kate liked him and always thought about him. I scoffed and asked why she didn't tell me. Abigail said Kate didn't want to because she really liked how wild Steave was acting. I asked when everything started. Abigail said it began when Kate asked Olivia if Steave was trying to get with her. When Kate confirmed it, they started dancing, and things got aggressive between them. When I asked what she meant by aggressive, Abigail said Steave asked Kate to twerk for him. She turned around and started twerking on him, and it was obvious he loved it. After a while, they started kissing and making out. Abigail said Kate admitted that she would let Steave get physical with her. It got to the point where she wouldn't stop him, and she started reciprocating his actions. I asked Abigail if Kate did this while our kids were around. She said no. Everything happened at work or at Steve's apartment. I told Abigail I couldn't believe Kate did this to me. Abigail said she couldn't believe it either, and that Kate told her she loved how wild Steave was. Kate thought going down on her would be all he wanted, but he wanted more. She liked his rebellious nature and how eager he was, thinking the neighbors might hear them. I asked Abigail if I should try to talk to Kate calmly, and she said yes. I said hell no. I was going to pick up the kids the next day but had nothing to say to Kate. Abigail said it wouldn't work if we both acted stubborn. I told her Kate made a fool of me, and I wouldn't give her that chance again. I told Abigail when I was coming to get the kids, and she groaned and hung up in frustration. That day, I felt pretty low and had to crawl my way back up. The next day, I went to get the kids, and one of the guys at work told me they took Steave to the office and made him gather his things. I told him the truth, and he said he would have done the same thing. He asked when I was coming back, and I said I'd come in Friday and work half a day. He said cool, and that he'd talk to me later. I was so happy I made dinner for the kids and got ready to leave. My oldest daughter asked if she could bring her iPad with her, and I said yes, but Kate snapped and said no because she bought it, so it stays with her. My daughter got upset, so I told her to wait in the car. I couldn't believe Kate was being this petty, which caused a huge argument. In a fit of rage, I threw a cup of orange juice at Kate, and she barely dodged it. She threw a fork at my head but missed. We were broken up by my brother Abigail and her friend. Kate yelled that she didn't need me and kept screaming, "Next, next!" My brother practically dragged me onto the porch. After calming down, I left because I was exhausted. Back in the car, I realized the next step was filing for divorce. The lawyers I spoke to said the video would be helpful. Kate is full of herself, and I hope it was worth it for her. If she thinks she'll have a meaningful relationship with Steave, she's delusional. Steave, or anyone else for that matter, isn't looking to be a stepdad to a woman with a lot of kids nearing 40. She didn't show any remorse and revealed just how much of a real witch she is. I hope the divorce goes smoothly, and I hope my kids and I will be okay. Isuzu88 chimed in saying Kate is pushing 40 but has the maturity of a teenager. She wanted me to fight Steave to feel wanted and desirable. If I'm smart, I'll get divorced, and Steave will dump her because he won't stick around in this situation. It's for the best. I hope I can move on from this and find peace in my life.